Honestly, I was like, where are my earphones? And then so I'm just going to use Wilders. They go with the t-shirt. They go with the badge.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. You
And I
just
was
need to
like,
be
oh, it's
walking.
only James. Fuck it. I haven't even got the blue light in the back. I haven't put the blinds down.
No.
Apart from the fact that I can't sit. If you see me doing this, it's because I've had treatment on my arse again this morning. On it, not in
What's going on
it.
then? What have you got? Have you got what would you what do you think you have or what?
We know what kind of the issue is. So I had that race, deny it, in Andorra,
Pika
well,
pika.
France, Pika Pika.
Mm.
So yeah, 11,000 meters of climb in 100K. But since I had a race at the end of
Mm.
June, last weekend of
Mm.
June, where I felt a bit ropey and did all right. I was fit in that. And then from that point, I was just feeling like shit basically through the summer.
Yeah.
And uh, so I had about a window of about 3 weeks to get fit for Pika Pika. So I was literally just going up and down. Like
Mm.
you probably saw, like Trivan 4 times,
Yeah, I saw
Penarol
that.
went a
Yeah.
couple of times, those kind of reps, because
Yeah.
most of the climbs at Pika was 30%.
Yeah.
And I just overdid it, and my SI joint got
And then did the
inflamed.
event.
Then did
Yeah.
the event. Um,
Yeah.
Weirdly, like I had some treatment before it, and I couldn't really feel it in the event. I could feel that I didn't have any knee lift essentially. Like I couldn't
Mm.
breathe, but I didn't have the knee lift. And
Mm.
I'm usually good at running downhill. I had to be really careful downhill. So the whole event was like good to be there, but just got through what I
Mm.
could. And then I think mixed in with the traveling, like it's 14, 15 hours of traveling to drive back. And like that week, I could just feel it, everything tightening up again. So I can't
Yeah.
complain too much about the event, but afterwards I've paid for it. And so the SI joint, that's calmed down, that's loosened up, I've strengthened my core, hip flexors needed strengthening, but then it's left like you like piriformis and that is just clinging on for dear life. Uh, it's like it's just like got a clamp on my ass basically. So any bit of running, I have to be very
Mm.
careful to see where the point is where it's going to flare up and go, right, that's my
Mm.
limit, go back to the strength. That's my limit, go back to the strength.
Yeah.
15 minutes in, let's introduce James Bezant, who has just, well, in the last few weeks completed the world's toughest mountain race, Dragon's Back.
Survived.
It was the world's toughest mountain race at 5 days, so at 6 days it must be. But yeah, self-proclaimed world's toughest mountain race. Not to take anything away from it, and yeah, we're gonna just chat to James about why the Dragon's back, how it went, and all that good stuff, mate. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you. Yeah, survived is the key word of that. I don't think there's yeah, well there is obviously completion, but it's yeah, the war of attrition unfortunately for me with that bloody event.
Yeah,
um
it's. Let's go back to the
on you
beginning
go.
then.
Sorry.
What, like, because obviously I've known you for a few years now. James,
Mm.
I've worked with James as a coach. That's why we've got probably a good relationship. Uh, but going into it, why the Dragon's back? And yeah, just start with that. Why the Dragon's back, mate?
Um Couple years ago, well, I'd say 5 or 6 years ago, my cousin sent me a link to it. He's Welsh. He's a classic Welsh person, very proud to be Welsh. You know, he's always into his endurance stuff as well. And he's like, have a look at this event. It's mega. Like, and I looked at it, and this was actually while I was serving in the Marines, right? I remember him saying it, and he showed it to me, and I was just like, fuck that. That is impossible. Just like, when you watch those earlier editions, obviously when Berghaus had it, you know, it wasn't as pretty as Montaigne do it nowadays. They do a great job, but back in the day, I think it was just a bit more raw, the footage that they showed, you know. And I just looked at that and I was just like, oh my God, that's impossible. Anyway, started getting back into running about 2 years ago. Just, I wouldn't say it massively comes natural for me, but I've always been able to run, as in like, it may not be fast or anything, but I've always just been able to, if I wanted to, I've always just been able to say crack a marathon. So I know that is like not a bad place to start. It's not going to be Kipchoge times, of course not, but I've always had that sort of general fitness across the board. Then started getting back into running a little bit, and I just always like wanted to tick the box off of doing an ultra. And then in 2021, my cousin messaged me and said, "Oh, remember Sam Skinner? Obviously, someone you've done Dragons Back 2022 with. He's running that event." And I was like, "Oh, what?" And what was really weird about that is me and Hannah, the missus, have always had like a nice special relationship with Wales. We always go there every year, like just a nice little holiday hiking, always around Brecon Beacons. And what was really weird is we was there that weekend in September when it was day 5. So we're hiking around Brecon Beacons. I'm just like looking at all these weirdos, like, look at these people, what are they doing? Selection or something? I don't, just like loons just running around. Then my cousin messaged me. It was like weird. He goes, "Oh yeah, Sam's doing that race. Do you remember that race that I told you about?" And I was like, "Oh, that's it." And then I just got glued. It sort of ruined our holiday, to be fair, because when you sort of know someone in that event, it can be just so bloody consuming, right? And it's the first time I've ever looked into it. So I'm watching every YouTube video, I'm watching all the edits, I'm just like learning who Helene, with whatever her name is, the one who won it in like 80 something. I'm like watching all that, and like my missus is probably thinking, "Oh God, what the hell?" And she just says to me, "Why don't you enter that?" And I goes, "Oh, I could enter that, can I?" And then I spoke to a friend of mine who's a running coach, and he just put me on the straight and narrow and goes, "An event like that," he goes, "I'm not gonna lie to you, you need time in the legs." He goes, "You could enter the 2022, but he goes, I'll guarantee you, you'd absolutely struggle. You won't enjoy the event, and you just will not have the time in your legs." I actually did that on the recent one as well, but obviously I finished it, which is the most important thing. And I took his advice, and then obviously I did an ultra, the Gower one, which was fantastic, great event. And then I contacted you for like some actual proper training and just a bit of like actual structure. So yeah, the race has been on my mind for 2 years. And then obviously I attended it and completed it and survived it just about this year.
Because it used to be when Shane revived it from the 90s or whenever, early 90s, it was, then when he revived it, it was every 2 years, wasn't it? So
Yeah.
it's a little bit like a poison chalice, the fact that he then added it every single year, because people get inspired and look at it, and then it might be September when they're looking at it, or they might find it on YouTube and before Christmas and go, "I'll enter it," which is great, but then they'll enter the next one, which is the following September. And like you said, when it was a gap of 2 years, it's like, one, I've got 2 years to train for this usually, yeah. Two, people go, "I can't fuck this up because it's only every 2 years, plus it's obviously not cheap and all that kind of thing." So sometimes I think it's great from an event kind of point of view, but we get to watch it or take part. But I think back when it was every 2 years, it was like, right, yeah, I'm going to give myself 2 years. So you definitely did the right thing. 2 years is probably the minimum if you're not already been doing that kind of stuff for years and years.
Yeah, and you think I was basically a beginner again. I've ran for years when I was younger in the Marines and stuff like that, but I haven't consistently ran a few times a week. Like it was like every other week doing a 5K or something, just ticking over. So in my eyes, when I look at that, you're a beginner. Like you may have this general fitness, which is good because you can work from that, but actually when it comes to actual running, you're a beginner, and when I look back at that now, it obviously with hindsight, and what I'd advise to people is actually I probably needed more time. I could have actually probably done with maybe another year or two, a few 50 milers in there, 100 miler in there, just more experience. And I know I finished the event and I get that, but looking back at it now, that's what I would have done differently. Just been fitter, stronger, more resilient with running.
Yeah. There's like you're looking at it at the point of view of what I could have done better though, which is just natural, isn't it? Whereas you've got like yeah, like the fact that you entered it and completed it at the first time of asking, you still got to give yourself enough credit for that, and if
Mm,
you gave yourself enough time to get through it. Like I say, like I've said
mm,
to the other guys, like Barry and stuff that were doing it this year, if they'd have come to me and it's pie in the sky, it's like, no, you need more. That's usually what I say. It's not unachievable. You
mm,
just need more time. But
yeah.
like you knew that you could, well, you were going to have to commit to it in terms of a few weekends away. You're a
Mm,
personal trainer, so you were like used to being in a gym. You reduced that a little bit, didn't you? Not work wise, just
mm, yeah.
lifting and changed the way you were lifting and stuff like that, and just gave yourself the best chance. Um, when was when you entered? I'm always interested. Like when you were going through the entry process, was it excitement, or did you have that, like buyer's regret when you buy something and you're like, oh fuck, I've
Yeah,
spent
no, was it buyer's remorse? No, no, I was
that
mega
buyer's,
excited.
yeah,
Like, as in, I think they released it like on the 10th of August, and
mm,
I like waited for that like 10 o'clock, 10th of August, and as soon as it was that moment, that clock had went, I just entered it straight away because I already. You think I've been, as you know, well, I don't know it. That for me, that race is and I haven't done loads of events, so I'll learn that over the years, but it's an event for me that I used to think about every day. With every run, I used to think about. I know because obviously you've done it when you've got a lot more experience under you, so it's a different. Like you had many more years in your legs. Do you know what I mean? So like
mm,
when you're like that, like the pros or the elites, they can enter it with it 6 months to go, can't they? Because they've just got
mm,
20 years of running in their legs, or
yeah,
So I knew I sort of built myself up to like not the year within the race, the year before that. Like first when first
yeah,
started working with you, I just knew that was the goal. Like get to that event, no matter
mm,
what. Build up slowly this year, and then the last year, just let that event consume you as much as possible, and just take it all in. I think I did about 10 recce's now. When I look at that, like all that time, all those weekends, which is that's
with
actually
all
a lot
those
of ups I
weekends that
think
you
I miss.
spent. Yeah, I
Gone.
was going to say, like the weekends that you spent, because we'll go through the training and go through the race. Because I know how many weekends you spent going up there and stuff
Mm.
like that. And like you live right down at the south, don't you?
Yeah, Portsmouth basically.
How far is it to get up to the Brecon Beacon, say? Or how long does it take you?
Brecken's is like 3.5 hours if you leave at like 3 in the
Yeah,
morning. You can do that in a good stint.
yeah.
Brecon, like, is a really good place to visit.
So you were doing
Yeah.
that, and like I'll still have people that won't go and wreck a race 45 minutes away. Sorry, I don't
Mm,
have people. I speak to people and then we end up not working
yeah.
together maybe because like you need to go and get on the course or
Yeah.
something. Or
Mm,
if you can't, why can't you? And we'll make the best out of it. But you were telling me, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And if anything, I
yeah.
had to hold you back in terms of recce's and
Yeah.
needing to go and spend that time. Um,
Yeah.
when you're
Because they can
going
be
for
like
those
little mini
recce's,
events anyway.
I was going
Yeah.
to say,
Sorry,
when
go
you're
on.
going for those recce's, is that because again, whether it's a Dragon's Back or whatever, sometimes it's the recce's that I enjoy way more, kind of thing, in terms of just enjoyment. Obviously, you enjoy Dragon's Back because of the whole thing. But talk to me about the recce's. Would you say it was a benefit? Could you have done? Would you wish you'd done less, more? How'd it go?
Um, Massive benefit, especially knowing the better lines because I went like 10 times. What I got to do, which is really fortunate, is like I got to take the routes that were the GPS they give you, and then I could visit it another time and do like the lines that you gave me, or like when I looked at say Simon Roberts or James Noble's, Chris Coates lines, and I looked at those like, oh, so that was really actually important to do sort of both lines, which always for me, when it comes to something like an event or anything, I think being as best prepared as you possibly can and leaving no stone unturned is actually vital. So I know some people won't recce that event, as in some people just actually choose not to, and then some people can't. A lot of,
Mm,
let's say, foreign runners, and I get that. That's completely different, to be fair. But I think if you're within 5 or 6 hours, I think you know go and do it. And it's a, do you know, it's a great couple of days out, and it's really good training. Like we used to do, what's it, Friday, get there Thursday night, do Friday, Saturday, Sunday, drive home Sunday, you know. Make sure you go with people so you can sort of just do point to point, because out and backs are just annoying trying to do the recce's, you know. But yeah, and that's actually what I was going to say. Like one of the bits I'll probably miss about this event is, you know, going out on these weekends with other runners and stuff like that, because it's just like, it's quite rare terrain for me, you know. I just don't have that terrain. Like,
Plus, you got to see it in
Snowdonia,
all different kind
yeah.
of in all different weather conditions as well, didn't you?
Mm. But it taught me about the key thing about the recce's was, didn't just teach me like the surrounding my ground of the ground around you, where to go, but it taught me how to use certain bits of kit as well, like the watch, you know. Like I remember when I went up, was it the glitters, and I went up that mad face, like I didn't follow I didn't go to the left.
The
I was
mad face.
scrambling in a storm, like, and I'm just looking at people like, and all you got all these people in like these special approach shoes and rope, and you see me with a pair of Hockers and a bloody Solomon vest. Do you know what I mean? And that's when I realised, you know, I got to the top, got the kit on that I needed, and I was like, just looked at my watch and goes, that shows I'm on the path, but I'm actually too far zoomed out. So I needed to zoom in. And when I zoomed in, you know, I'm miles to the right. So just like little things like that a recce can do, you know. And then you bring the map out and have a look at.
I remember after that run with you, and I remember I sent you that screenshot of just your line. I was like, interesting line there, mate.
I lost so much time, honestly. But what was brilliant, I got to the top of the glitters that day, and it was like clag, and then I just see this guy, he was like in a yellow Innovate jacket, just hopping the rocks, looking like an absolute pro. And he just looked at me and stopped. He goes, "Are you right, mate?" And I goes, "Yeah, I'm just trying to get to, is it Glitter 4? The checkpoint before you go into Penny Fower, until you get to the Penny Pass line." He goes, "Yeah, mate, don't go over the rocks, just handrail them." And then when he said that, like even bumping into him, and then I sort of followed him-ish. And I was like, oh yeah, never, because if you look, if you look at the GPX, and even if you're zoomed in, sometimes it will have you going over those sort of like false summits or whatever, wouldn't it? And actually that ground is fucking shit.
You've got to,
yeah, the recce's were good.
Having the GPX and everything is great, and it's essential to run that event now in the way that it's run. But at the same time, like you say, going over the ground and having the line there, but also having your head up, and I mean, it's not common sense. It's a little bit more than common sense. But like you say, the big rock formations sticking out of the glitters and stuff. Like you've got to remember that GPX file is what Shane and his team has set up as like the best route as a runner. It might not be the shortest or whatever, but yeah, it's the one that makes sense the most. So if you're ever climbing over something that you think you probably shouldn't be climbing over,
that's unrunnable, hang on a
minute,
which I did.
Yeah, should I be 10 meters to the left where it looks a little bit more runnable, but it's not exactly on my line of the watch?
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely learned a lesson that day. So yeah, that just like that, even to doing that and having that glitch and losing all that time trying to blink and scramble, but then it, you know, I got to the top and I was like, right, use your watch a bit better, you know. And obviously that's when I got the map out as well, and I was looking at like the icons, you know, the rocks as they draw them on, and then you see the path to the left, so you're like, oh yeah, don't go over it. Yeah, like things like that. So yeah, for me, I think, yeah, but I think as well, when you come into the event, you just know what's coming up. And some people don't like that, but I think that's good. You know, if I know there's a honking hill coming, you know, I'm eating and getting some caffeine on board straight away, because I know that this is just shit climb. So, you know,
yeah, those
sorts of things as well. Streams,
everyone wants Dragon's Back a little bit different, because some people want a slightly different experience. I get it, like you say, if they want to go map, compass, not seen 90% of the route and just have a journey, that's brilliant. But there's lots of people out there that might be knowing that they're going to either be chasing cut-offs, or they just need to get through it the best way they can.
Yeah.
and all that kind of thing. So yeah, I get both sides. When you're, like you say, when you were doing the recce's and you were doing races along the way, were you building up confidence in your own head that you were going to be capable of doing it? Because like we didn't really mention the fact. I never mentioned the fact that like, are you confident of doing the race? Because I can just see it in people usually, whether they're naive or not. It's like I'm not going to ask them that question before they do it. But
Mm.
were you feeling confident, or with the closer you got, were you feeling less confident? How was it going?
Certain things grew my confidence. Like I, I, I was quite confident, but then sometimes when you do a recce, you're like, oh my god, you do get a bit of doubt. I remember the first time I ever did a recce. So the first time I went to Snowdon, I went with my mate who's quite a good runner, and I just did us like the horseshoe with a bit of extra. Um, and it's like 12 miles, and he's like, oh, we're only going to do 12 miles. I was like, yeah, be 12. And that took us like 5, 6 hours. And that was a big learning curve. It was amazing. I had amazing weather, got the best views. But that was like, when I finished that day, I was like, having a beer. I was like, fucking hell, actually, this is real. This is going to be really tough. Like, you think 12 miles, oh, that should take you couple hours, a bit of elevation, then you just then I yeah, and I was like, oh my god. But there was confidence things going. I did some of those raw recce's, which I think are absolutely fantastic actually, and good value for money. And I felt like I was quite fit in those and strong in those, so that does sort of like boost your confidence a little bit. Not that I'm competitive with people,
Mm,
but I thought, and then you speak to other people and you see how long they've been training and stuff like that, and I just thought, actually, yeah, I'm doing all right actually. And then I could feel the fitness in the hills as well. That's coming. Like, I wasn't like, I'm not a fast runner or anything, but I just felt like I could just, like, any uphill, I just felt like a power march, like those sorts of things, where you're just smashing hills and you're not getting out of breath. And I was just like, and
mm,
then smashing the descents and stuff like that. That's when I sort of like started to get the confidence of, actually, yeah, you can do this as long as you keep moving. I think that's the key point in this race. It doesn't always matter whether you're moving at 1 mile an hour or like 6 or 7. Like, you just fucking move at whatever you can and don't stop.
yeah.
So yeah, I did get confident as it came along, but then I always had a massive respect for the race. When you go for a goal like the Dragon's Back, with my running history, I know that there is a chance, and I believe you do have to accept that you might not finish this race. There's like a high chance of you
Mm.
not finishing this race, to be fair.
Did you have like going into it? Did you start to worry about anything in particular?
As in on the
Keep going. That's my
Gary?
camera.
Yeah. Now,
Yeah,
is
it's
that
my
on the
kept going.
event or before?
No, like say in the weeks leading up to it, like apart
Yeah.
from I know you had some shins grumbling, but just
Yeah.
getting a bit closer to the event, did you start to worry about anything?
Only the shin thing. I just thought, I've had 2 years of solid training, no niggles, nothing. Looked after myself, did good load management, rested, recovered, blah, blah, blah. And then obviously the shin thing came along, which obviously just made me sort of not bedbound, but there was no running roughly about
Mm,
10 days before the event, which isn't the best because that event's such a steep incline then of a spike, isn't it? So like that first day, my body's going, what is this? You haven't ran for 10 days, And
mm.
then that first day is like,
It's
I
hard,
think the
wasn't it?
clock's
It's like
over.
because I remember
Yeah,
when you were speaking to me, it was like, and I'm going, just don't run, mate. But I know, at the same time, it's hard to say to someone before like 10 days out
you
from
don't want to
Dragon's Back, don't
decondition,
run
do
at
you?
all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Um, but you're gonna recondition yourself pretty quickly on day one. I was thinking, yeah. Like in all honesty, like because it's a long, slow climb on day one, isn't it? People forget how much you're actually climbing for a long period of time. So
Mm.
you're not, you haven't got any long downhills for a while. So it's just like, right, let's get you to that point fully rested at that
Mm.
kind of, rather than
Mm.
risking too much. Yeah.
I
Um,
think as well with
yeah, it was
Dragon's
good,
Back,
mate.
go on, sorry. I was going to say, like,
No, go on.
tapering has to. tapering probably has to be viewed differently with that sort of stuff. I don't know, with Dragon's Back, 'cause it's not like a single event, guns blaze and let's go. It's actually,
Mm.
you know, you when you're on day one, you probably know you got to think about day 6 and stuff like that, haven't you? So actually, it's yeah, that probably did, like, obviously resting it probably did do me actually what I needed, because
Mm.
I know in the last few blocks of like last few months of training before the Dragon's Back, I had like recce's that were a bit close to each other, and you know, and that wasn't always, it wasn't optimal, should we say. You know, I had like certain
Mm.
things that were just a bit too close to my liking, because the thing about the recce's as well, if you're doing like say 3 back-to-backs of roughly, you know, 20 milers, that's like a little mini event, isn't it, in a way?
Yeah, you were. I think you got the most out of your training that you could without pushing it too
Mm.
far. And like you say, that showed in
Yeah.
just towards the end. You got a little bit of tendonitis essentially, but it wasn't too much. So
No.
yeah, I think you did the best that you could with the training, mate. Going into it, like when you stood in Conway Castle, like I've been there twice now. Like, what time does it start? 6 now, 7, something like that in the
6 now,
morning on the
yeah.
Monday. Yeah, so when you're standing there on that start line and you've got like the old boys singing the Welsh choir, like, how were you feeling then? Were you ready to go, or was you twitching a little bit?
I just wanted to get on with it, to be fair. I felt that in the week before, like, and the weeks prior, actually. I was just like, oh, come on, get it. You know, just like, let's just go, let's just go. And it's not until, it's nice, it's like a nice moment that you can take in, but it's quite blurred, but just because I think you actually feel like you're actually in the event when you're moving. And then when you get to Lyn Ogwyn,
Yeah.
you're like, and it was, the heat was obviously beating down there, and it's in that valley, like it's just
Mm.
always seems to be humid, and you just sit down for 2 minutes and you just see like people in bits, people smashing it, people eating, people got their feet out, like it's like quite a busy pit stop, isn't it, because there's so many people still in the event. So it's just like, and I'm just like, I've just got to get out of here because it's just too much. And actually, I should have probably stayed there a little bit longer and just like chilled out a little bit and ate some more food, because before you know it, you know, you're climbing up Triffin, which is it was just hard that
Yeah.
day, you know.
You're thinking, well, yeah, it was, yeah, everyone will have seen it probably that's remotely interested in this podcast, but it was hot, wasn't it? So
Mm,
I've climbed up Trivan in the heat, and it's just those boulders are usually like cold to touch, or all of a sudden the heat's bouncing off them, and then you know you've got to
mm,
drop down and go back up into the glitters, and all of a sudden you've got like
mm,
hours of feeling it. There's no shade, maybe a little bit of
mm.
shade when you go up to the glitters on that stick, but then it's fucking steep as hell, and you're clambering around, and you're
Yeah,
thinking, I need to eat, but all of a sudden you're at that point where your stomach's thinking, I don't want to eat now. Yeah. So it's like,
yeah,
and then you're thinking, like you said, yeah, that's when you know you're in the event, and you're only in halfway through day one or something.
yeah. It's like, yeah. My sorry, Gary. My talk.
Yeah,
Can you? Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
good?
Got ya. Sorry, something was up with my
Yeah, got you.
thingy then.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
How did they go
can't
on
hear you.
overall then? I can't hear.
There you go. Got ya.
Got me?
Yeah,
Might be
got ya.
my
Got ya.
internet. It's
Sorry.
all right. Go
Yeah,
on, day
sorry. What was
one.
you
How
gonna say?
did like some day, set some day one up for me?
What the fuck have I got myself into? Um, Wicked day though. Like, as in, got to Lyn Ogwyn within like, I always wanted to get there around the 5-6 hour mark, you know, because I know that the back end of that day, past then, is just a slow going ground. So
Mm.
got there before I got in even to the checkpoint. I jumped in Lyn Ogwyn, sat there for a couple of minutes, just literally, just thought, why not?
In
You know, it's here.
Llynogwyn?
Yeah,
How'd you get in there?
you know, like the lay-by that's on the right.
Yeah, what you got over there and went in?
Yeah, just got over there, sat in there, and then went to the checkpoint. Sorted my
Bloody
life out.
hell.
I just thought it was so hot. You know, you're on that tarmac road, that road that just doesn't end until you hit that
No.
checkpoint. And I just got in there, then sort
It's
myself
not, you're
out.
not on holiday, mate.
But I got to like that checkpoint with like well under time. If you, do you know what I mean? So I was just like, I'm just gonna
Yeah.
cruise this, and
It's
then
absolutely freezing in that lake as well. I bet that was a nice shock.
yeah, and then got onto Triffin, and I was like, I just started feeling sensations I've never felt before while being out, of like moving. I just felt hot, quite nauseous. Stopped every few minutes, you know, like a few steps, take a breather, sit in the shade because there was still bits of shade of rocks. Would have been like 11:30ish while I'm climbing Triffin. So certain bits you could still hide. Then I just saw my mate who I did some recce's with come out of nowhere, and I just jumped on with him and just stayed with him. And he was sort of feeling the same way. And then actually, when I got into camp on day one, I spoke to loads of people, and they're like, "Yeah, I was like," they were like, "Yeah, we was all dying." People were vomiting a lot because you think you've just done that checkpoint, and the biggest issue with that is like obviously loads of people scoff tons of food, so
Hmm.
and then they're climbing Triffin, which probably I'd say, would you say that's the worst climber that day? Yeah, probably, isn't it? Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I've
I'd
never
say.
had both times I've done Dragon's Back, I've felt awful going up it. I don't know what it is, and I've been done other races, other days on Trivan, and absolutely flown
Yeah,
up it the same way. I say
yeah.
flown up it, but felt great on it and felt strong. And twice now, I felt felt horrible by the time I got to the top. But yeah, it's
It's
just
probably the
the
fact as
nature
well
of it,
you've
I
done
think.
like 20 miles as well, haven't you? That's the sometimes to forget. Like you almost forget that when you go and recce Triffin, most times you park at the bottom, and that's your fresh legs going
The
up. Whereas
main
actually on Dragon's
the,
Back,
the
you've done
main thing
20.
is the main issue is, I think, for most of it is that you forget. Well, some people forget that they've just come off Penwell Wen, which is like over 1,000 meters down to the lake, and that's the first time you've done a long sustained downhill, and it is one of the
Yeah,
longest downhills, and it's runnable. And then you hit the road, which is another half a mile of running, and
yeah,
then some people have a full on meal, and then they go right off we go, crack on up Trevan. It's like
yeah,
that's when most people
yeah,
would be ending their day if it was a run.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah.
it's
So
unfortunate. I knew a lot of people that didn't make that day because of that. Like at that point, like Triffin was like the last straw for them. You know.
yeah, I mean, in reality, mate, Trifan on day one cannot be your last straw of the Dragon's Back. Otherwise, yeah, you
Mm.
needed more time to train.
Mm.
That's the bottom line, really. How did how did recovery go? Because I know in the build up you'd done the 3 day silver event, was it? What do they call it?
Yeah, that's a fantastic event. The Great Lakeland 3 day,
Yeah,
really
the
good
Great
event.
Lakelands.
Yeah.
You'd done. I remember we talked about that just to get used to doing your admin stuff like that. Very similar in
Mm.
terms of getting up and going out and running the mountains. So could you relax on day one? Did you sleep fine in the night? How was it? How did that bit go?
Camp admin not too bad for like obviously been in the military stuff like that. So like all that stuff came relatively quite easy. You know, just sort yourself out, sort your kit out, and then obviously feet up and eat and stuff like that. But there was like like I think, and everyone felt this like on day one where we just came in and it was like we was all like we were like zombies. Like there was like death stares going. Like we were all just fried. Do you know what I mean? Like it was like we all came in and we were just like, what? You know, like we were just like all zombies. And then I yeah, like I remember Barry coming in at like 10 to 10, and he just comes into the tent, and I'm laying down, and he's like, do you know what I mean? Like he's just seen someone get shot. You know, we were all like that when we first got in there because we were just like, I think there was like a massive. The heat just made everything so difficult that day, you know, and it was just like we were all just like, I think, in shock, and I think most people in the camp could say that about day one. I think, yeah, that because I'd say out of all the days, that's probably the worst day for it to be really hot because of just the ground, as you know, it's like bouncing off the stones and stuff like that. And then typical me just took some painkillers that had caffeine in, so I was just up all night, just like looking at the top of the tent, buzzing my tits off, like my legs and feet are going, what have you just done? I had a mare the first night, to be fair. Just wired, you
It's
know?
funny, everyone that's ever gone into this that I speak to is like, you can plan as much as you want, and then you'll go and make a dick move like that. No, I mean, it's not a dick, but you know what I mean. It's just like a small mistake,
Yeah,
say, and
yeah,
it's
oh,
like
yeah.
I'm kind of the opposite. Like you, like if you ever speak to Si, he's just like he's baffled about how I make get to the end, not the running part, just like the admin side of things, because I
Yeah,
basically wander in the tent, fall asleep, wake up, my shit's everywhere. Don't even like
yeah.
when you have to go and check your bag in. I don't know if you heard this story. It's like every day I'd forgotten something in the tent, and he'd have to either give it
Yeah,
to me or I'd be back. Like one day I forgot my day bag. I was like checking out, or like giving my bag in, and it was like they were like. Si was like, "You missing something?" Because you come. I was like, "What are you on about?" It's like didn't even have my actual running back. I was like
he
trying to
didn't
leave
have
it
your
out.
vest on.
Oh, it's just every single day there was something that like I couldn't find
Yeah,
something. It was just I'm I was unorganized, but then I had my set routine, which I'd
yeah,
done. Which anyone who succeeds in finishing, like you'll know, I bet you will have had your set routine, and then everything
yeah,
else might have been a bit chaotic.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so as
Like
long as
you,
you're set,
and yeah,
people overanalyze so much about every little thing that they're
yeah,
packing and all this kind of stuff, and in reality, as long as you get your food down, you set your bed up and lie down, even if you can't sleep because your mind is running, even if you lie down and let your legs rest, that is kind of your routine, right?
yeah. And I actually woke up on day two, and I quite like day two. I know that's like quite a hard day and stuff, which it is. But I recce'd the whole day. I just knew what was there. I knew, and there was a massive breeze, so it's still really hot. Actually, there was a massive breeze which did help. But I woke up and I didn't wake up because obviously I didn't go to sleep. But when I first started moving in the morning, because you all know, right? There's people getting up at 3 o'clock, torches around,
Mm.
banging around, like, and I'm just thinking in my head, like, are your feet that bad that you have to wake up at 3? Why are you getting up? I just didn't get it. But so yeah, when I suppose packed my stuff away and walked around the camp, I was like, I feel good, I feel all right. For someone who has not slept a wink, I felt all right, good to go, to be fair. Fortunately.
Day two was pretty was all right, wasn't it? You made good progress through day two, which is when you
Yeah,
go through the Rhinogs and stuff. Um,
yeah,
it's yeah, I mean, yeah, it was very hot, but arguably like you with your background and everything, I was confident that you'd manage the heat okay. It's when it
mm,
becomes, if there was a storm and everything up there, it's like that eats into people's time. And
yeah,
yeah, I'm not going to say I was following the tracker 10 hours a day, but yeah, every time I checked in, it's like, yeah, James making good progress,
mm,
making good progress. It was
mm.
never, it was, it just seemed like you had a good solid day, if I'm honest. Is that how it was? Obviously, you go in 70 odd K,
Yeah,
whatever it is, but it seemed pretty solid.
yeah. And it felt, what was quite good about that day is the only thing that hurt a little bit was like my feet, just like certain blisters developing, but I didn't have the issue with my knee. The knee sort of thing crept in on day three and then just got progressively worse.
Mm.
So I was still just really enjoying it, like just gliding through all the things. And I knew, and it's always nice, like we were saying about the recce's earlier, being on that familiar ground. That's like, I think that's a massive advantage. Oh, this is come in, do this, do that, and then taking the line, is it to Diffwis, that one? That just, is that how you say it? Diffwis, yeah.
Yeah,
That one,
the first, yeah.
I think that's probably like when I think, because I only really took shortcuts on what, day 2 and 3, but that's like the best. That for me, that's the arguably the one you noticed the most on, because there were people
Mm.
running much better
Because
than
you
me
can
in
see
front of
people on
me.
that shit ground up to the left usually, and
Yeah,
you're like, "Ah."
and they're looking at you like,
And then they look at
"What's he
you and
doing?
they
He's
realize there's
going
no
into a
way down
bog."
there, really. Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah, it's a
yeah,
good one,
and
that
that's
one.
the one. Yeah, and it just gives you it's like a little morale
And
booster.
up, but then you just have
You
to,
know,
you see them there, and then you have to go, fuck me, I'm gonna have to put my foot down here because if I come up there, because you can watch each other, if I come up there behind them, then they have the last laugh, don't they? It's like, not that you want, it's not that competitive in that way, but I
it's
remember
not
seeing someone and going,
competitive, but yeah,
I'm gonna have to get there for my own, like, just so I don't look a
self
dick
reward.
now, basically.
Yeah. So,
Yeah,
and then you've got quite a nice descent off that. Like that's a mega view, isn't it? Because like if you turn around, you've got the
yeah,
Renogs, then you've got like to the right, you've got the beaches and stuff, and then you've got the wood block
mm,
that you're sort of heading towards now. And that descent's all really nice, and then you just got the typical, which was like a part of every day, really, just the slog back to camp, the like low flat ground that's like, oh, I should be smashing this, but I don't want to, and then you don't, and then you nearly come in at like nearly 10 o'clock. That's that sort of ground, yeah. Yeah, but yeah, no, day two is good. I like day two.
so when the knee started to play up on day 3 and day 4, what
Day
did you
two
start
night
to
it
think
came
then?
in. Sorry. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it just felt like classic bit of swelling around to the side of the knee, just like overuse. Obviously, on certain parts of day two, I just got too carried away with those descents really, and just had too much
Mm,
fun. Obviously, that combined with, I feel like sometimes when you're in like an event like that, you do a lot of movement in a real shortened range of motion. Like you never really flex and extend the knee properly. Do you know what I mean? It's just like a little movement like that instead of like going through the full range of motion at times. And yeah, so sometimes throughout the rest of the event, it actually felt better to run at a faster pace than a little shuffle, if that makes
mm,
sense. Because it was like you was actually just getting
yeah,
the joint moving properly. So yeah,
yeah.
just a bit of
The
swelling, just a bit of overuse.
when you get when you get to day 4 and there's quite a lot more running kind of thing, it almost feels like a relief, doesn't it? Where it's
Mm,
kind of shouldn't feel like a relief that you have to run now, but actually it is a bit of a relief. Like in those
mm.
first three days, let's say, what was the biggest surprises you had, if anything? What surprised you more about the event?
How much fluid I've always been a big water drinker, so I was always carrying 3 liters, but actually how much I was getting through, well over 10 liters a day,
Mm,
like
yeah,
easy, stopping in streams
Jesus.
still. Yeah, that's, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's like a lot of fluid. And I am one of those people that I'm not a really, was it a salty sweater, but I do generally feel like I generally drink a lot of water a day anyway. So getting through that was
Mm,
like, fucking hell. But I noticed it if I stopped, if that made sense. Like I'd have like a moment where I'd just forget to keep that routine going. I would definitely feel that straight away. And to sort of feel that, obviously, what, by day 3, you're in a massive calorie deficit that you just can't claw back, of like, if you miss the timings of your gels and stuff like that. I had like my alarm watch going off every 30 minutes where I'd eat like a Cliff Blocks and just easy carbs. But like if I sometimes just missed that for whatever reason, I could almost feel the hunger pang straight away. It was like, fucking hell,
mm,
you are in a deficit right now. Like, so that's quite a that's a rare feeling for me, to feel that, like, oh, you're in a deficit. So yeah, but no real big, I suppose. I thought I'd have more time in camp,
mm.
those sorts of things. Time just runs away from you. I think
Just
once you get to
goes,
that
doesn't
day
it?
3, yeah, once you get to those 40 milers from day 3 onwards, really, and it's like 40 and above, the time is just gone. Like the first night on day 1, I was quite sociable with people. I was just speaking to them, having nice chats with like people I knew from the raw recce's. And then as the week went on, I just got more selfish and more efficient, and just remembered that event.
Mm,
I'm here for this event, and I haven't got time to faff. Doing everything as quick as possible,
yeah.
like eating whilst looking at Dragon Mail. Yeah, cheers. Just like trying to just get everything refined, and just yeah, trying to lie down as much as possible, essentially.
Did you get lots of dragon mail?
Yeah, I got lots of abuse. Yeah.
That would have been rubbish if you said no. Nobody sent me anything.
No, no, nobody said it.
Yeah, it's like I sent you at least 2 or 3, maybe. So he's going to say yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
it's
counts.
it's funny though. As the event goes on, you start reading it, and it's like you lose track of days, or it feels like a lot longer since you spoke to that person or something, and you're like, and it might be one sentence, and you're like, oh my god, thank you, kind of thing. And it's like you
Yeah,
start,
I was thinking, yeah, you just get more vulnerable, as for me, and like more.
Mm.
you're just in the DB bubble, aren't you? And you're just
Yeah.
becoming more and more
It's only at
fatigued.
that point, really.
You
That's the
know,
only point, apart from like, because I never used to have my phone signal on and stuff. Really, when I'm on the day. So when you read the Dragon Mail and stuff, that's like the first time it reminds you that, oh yeah, there's people out there
yeah,
that might be watching or following how you go in, kind of thing, and you kind of need that. Though it's a good boost because otherwise you're spending the days just you can really question like basically why am I still going or any of that kind of stuff.
yeah,
If that was going to
mm,
creep in, you've got a nightly reminder, haven't you?
mm,
Actually, no
yeah.
chance, mate. Carry on, that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was quite nice. Like I remember, so because I don't know if they did this. Did you have Wi-Fi when you was there? We had
No,
Wi-Fi and stuff. Like so,
I
you're
know
proper
the good.
connected to the
It's
outside world.
literally. Oh, it's literally like a holiday camp now, mate. It's not even.
Yeah,
It's not
it's not
even.
even
It's
a
not even
real.
not hard. Is it?
It's not even a hard
Yeah.
session. Yeah. So like
Phone. They got
that
what
was
have they
quite
got? They
helpful.
got chargers, the drying room,
Yeah.
Wi-Fi now. I saw that you had smoothies on like day 3 or something. We had one on the last night. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
basically like an
So
all-inclusive
yeah,
holiday now.
basically like an all very expensive yeah hiking trip. No, but that was quite helpful, like getting certain messages off the missus, like telling me like the messages she'd be receiving from the charity I raised money for, and I was like fucking, like the
Yeah,
moment you're like, oh my god, that's bloody hell, that's amazing. But like where I'd never usually be like that, but where like as you get on through the week, you're just more vulnerable, like until you get that
mm.
day 6 where you're just like, I was just the swagger was back on day 6. Like, I mean, I'm forgetting shit in my tent. I'm just like, yeah, fuck it, I don't need that. I'm going home, like, especially after that day 5. God, yeah. So, yeah, that's
Let's
yeah,
talk
day
about day
6.
5 then, because yeah, otherwise we'll be here all day. But day 4 again,
Yeah,
pretty solid day. I
pretty
wasn't
solid day.
worrying at all.
Yeah, yeah, dragged a little bit on those road sections. My knee was like,
Yeah,
I was resorting to the hike slash shuffle. So those last sections, which are actually
mm.
really nice when you got the sun, because you've got all these mad views like through these valleys, well, the Elam Valley, obviously. And then yeah, felt like forever to get back to camp. But that is the day where I got in daylight again, which was nice. That's quite nice feeling. Just that, like, oh god, it's still daylight. You can go in the stream without your head torch and stuff like that. That was quite nice. So yeah,
I
that
remember
day.
saying to you and Barry and that beforehand about the long run into camp on tarmac, and then seeing you go
Yeah,
down it, I thought, is he all right, or is he just chilling, or is he just knackered,
I was
kind of thing?
chilling.
But I was like, I hope he's chilling and taking on or just remembered the
Yeah,
fact that it's a long downhill because it
yeah,
is. That's
yeah,
messed up a lot of people's races, mine included. The first time, to be honest.
yeah.
Do you think
There's
that played
definitely a
into the knee
feeling. Yeah.
playing up?
No, because the knee was hurting by then already. So it was like the knee thing is like, I look at it as like a blessing and a curse, because the
Mm,
blessing is it lowers your intensity regardless, because when it hurts you just have to slow down. Whereas if you didn't have that
yeah,
issue, would I have pushed a lot harder? Would I have, been running a lot more, and like could I have not finished the race because I could have just went too hard too soon? So like, I take the positive from the knee. It actually it slowed me down. And the downhills, yeah, that's a fast section, but I couldn't push the downhills most of the time. My quickest times were flats and uphills. That's where I had to make time up, just like really
mm.
march up hills. I was overtaking people uphill, and then as soon as we got to the top, they were just like just gazelling down, and I was just like hobbling, like, yeah, some creature just coming down off the hills.
You're
Yeah, it
basically
was
like
annoying.
a big old van with the speed limiter on
Yeah, it was
on the
just, oh
motorway.
mate, I was probably like sapping the morale out of people on these uphills, and they're like, oh god, why does he find that so easy? And then they just see me on the downhill, just laugh, take the morale
Yeah,
back that I've sapped off them. Do you know what I mean? Like, look at him. Yeah. So I knew about that. There's moments of the days where you are within that cutoff, right? So as
mm,
soon as I ever felt that, I knew not to get complacent or take the piss, but I knew you're finishing this day. So there's no stress now. It's just literally preserve yourself for the next day. Because I feel like for me, my two biggest days that I was always like had a worry about was day 3 and day 5, just because of the length and the elevation and the ground. Like they've always been quite the two. No, day 3 was the hurdle in the 5-day event, wasn't it? That was always the one. And then now the recent additions, it's day 3 and 5.
Day 5.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, day 5 is the one, right? But yeah, day 5, what a day. To experience the Brecon Beacons in that heat was obviously not the best at times, but the views that you got, like were phenomenal to see that sort of ground like that. The first day where I actually had to chase a bit of, got worried about timings, and the first day was where I had to chase cut-offs, something I've never experienced before. So that was actually quite fun, looking at the map, looking at recommended time. I always wanted to get in the recommended, not near the cut-off. Does that make sense? Because they do it out. Because I think if you do that, then you're always safe for the 10 o'clock time. Obviously, this event had actually another thing that this event had. It was obviously the heat allowances. So on certain from day 2, you could come in like say 10:29 and you wouldn't be dropped. So they had
what do you have up to 30 minutes grace? Yeah
30 minutes
again,
so
just like making it easy for everyone.
Yeah. What was quite smart about that though was, as in, you still had to come in before the cutoff. So say if the cutoff was 2 o'clock, you had to come in, say 5 to 2, and then you could have half an hour. You didn't have to leave the checkpoint straight away. Does that make sense? If someone came in at 2:05, they didn't have 25 minutes. They were pulled then.
No.
That made sense. That was like the I suppose
you still got to make the cutoff, and then because otherwise you're not changing a cutoff there. No, you're just you've got a break essentially. It's just safety and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I probably should have, on day 5, took more time at the checkpoints, but I still personally wanted to come in before the 10 o'clock. That was my.
You definitely shouldn't have took more time, because
I got in at like 8 minutes too. So
I sat there watching with 5 minutes to spare, and then you wandered over. So you definitely didn't waste any time.
Yeah, I definitely had. Yeah. But day 5, what was cool, like I was saying about the cut-offs, like I was worried about, I'm going to miss this, the first support point, and it was just like something had taken over me. I just put my headphones in, put some bangers on, all pain just left, and I just smashed everything, like overtaking people yet again, smashed the uphills, and I'd get in right to the support point, the first water one. No, it's the main support point, because it's like halfway, isn't it? Yeah, you think think it's that road there, but it's not. You've got one more climb, then it's the road. So that confused everyone as well, because we all ran to the bottom thinking, support point's here. And we're like, oh shit, we've got to climb, and then the descent, and it's the next road. And then I got in, and I was like, oh, you've got an hour till the cut off. I was like, oh, for fuck's sake. So I like pushed. But again, like I say, like me doing that got me in before the 10 o'clock cut off, right? So it's still a win. 5 minutes, no faff, refill water, dip your hat, get moving straight away again. And then I thought, I was going to miss the penny pass cut off, but then got into that within 45 minutes spare. But that was quite fun. That was yet again, like, it was just like little adrenaline rushes that were just quite fun. I've never ever experienced that. And then obviously just made that slog off up Story Arms. No, it is the Story Arms pass, not Penny Pass. It was Story Arms. Sorry, Story Arms.
No,
going up to Penny Fan, and then that descent that's the one where I probably lost about 3 hours on that descent off Penny Fan. I was just like, mate, it was just like I'd have been safer coming down in a wheelchair on that. Like, that was just like making all sorts.
That's what I was like last year. Halfway through day 5, that's when I picked up the shin injury, and every step was like, couldn't really lift that foot off the ground. It was like shuffling up, And then,
Mm.
like you say, as soon as you go off Penavan and it's up and down, it's like that's the worst place not to be able to lift your leg properly. And I'd gone from
Yeah.
being wherever I was to all of a sudden, I don't know if I'm going to get in it because it's going dark and stuff. And I knew what was to come down. You
Yeah.
go alongside the like the little waterfalls and river, but it's
Mm.
through the woods and it's easy. You can go off track there, can't you? It's like
Yeah.
and I saw lots of people around that point, and I think just hoping that people make it down without taking a wrong turn down there because you can easily do it.
Mm. Yeah. And then actually, that's when I sort of got this the third adrenaline rush was like, it was just the thing that I lost so much time on that day was just the descents, like, and some of them are quite harsh. Obviously, before the wood block, you've got that descent, haven't you? And then you go into the flat field for a bit, and then you get to the waterfalls. And I got to the waterfalls, looking at my time, I was like, right, I've got to really dig deep here. I had to overtake the mateys I was with. Like, we just stuck together for a little bit. I was like, yeah, I'm just going now. And I just sort of just turned into some monkey down that bloody river and just got on that road and then just started 8-minute miling like there was nothing to it, just thinking, God, no pain, got in, then like all the pain's back as soon as I know I'm within the cutoff, like, oh, thank God for that. So yeah, that's a long old day, that, but a good day, to be fair.
As soon as you finished that and you knew you'd made the cut off and everything, were you and you started feeling a bit painful, did you allow yourself to think, right, it's doable now, I'm probably going to be okay? Or was it
Yeah, I
like,
think that,
oh shit, I've just nearly missed a cut off?
no, I think you can really, I don't know if anyone's not made day 6. It's still 40 miles. I know it's
I think they have, yeah. I think they've
it
been
probably
crossed
has
off on
been
day
like
6.
someone who's
Yeah.
probably had a real bad injury, and it's literally
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
yeah. But I did feel like an air of confidence after getting in that day, and I think you could see that the relief in all the people that are still there. Like, the most eeriest thing about day 5 was obviously us, like, back of the pack, mid pack runners, were the only people at the 6 o'clock start. So like, there's like 10 of us, and you're like, that we're all silent, we're all nervous, and we're like, wow, this is the only day where you feel like, God, we're the survivors, you know, because obviously the faster people are,
Yeah.
you know, they're strolling out at 7, aren't they, you know? So like, that was quite a weird start on day 5. There was only like a few of us, and we are all like looking dead. But when we got in that night and you saw people that are eating, you know, morale was high, but you definitely saw some people that were absolutely broken from that day. Like, the way that they were just like looking at their food, you just see, and you sort of see people, don't you, over the week just become like, people are losing pounds per day of like, if you've got someone who's naturally slim, like, that person can go from like slim to looking like really skinny at the end of like day 5, and you just see them eat, and they're like just looking at their food like, you know, and you're like, fucking hell. But yeah, there was definitely a good feeling about coming in on day 5, because I just knew, oh, you can walk, you can power hike tomorrow. I don't care what time I finish. I know you can just get that day done. And there were sections like on day 6 where I jogged for quite a while, had good fun, and then as soon as I start getting into that,
it's strange, isn't it? Because you go in and out of. Sorry, mate. It's strange because you go. The start of the day is pretty similar to all the other days. You know, like I said, hopefully you get a sunrise or whatever when you go towards the top and you start descending. It's not a massive hill, but hike up and run down, and then all of a sudden you're going in and out of villages or towns. And I remember going through a bloody park run and stuff, and you're like, what? It's like you're going in and out really of civilization refreshing. All of a sudden.
Yeah, it's like, it's actually really, the new scenery is actually really refreshing, isn't it? People are like, you sort of, it's like the perfect taper into normal life again a little bit, because you see people, and you see like just people in shops, you're like, oh my God, what's that? That's that thing, a co-op, you know, like, you did these things that you've forgotten, like, because you've just done this long week on no sleep, and then you're like, oh my God, I forgot about those shops, you know. And it's quite a nice way back.
Someone will stop you and go, God, where have you all come from? And you're like, I can't be asked explaining. Conway Castle.
Yeah,
Where?
Conway Castle. Huh? Yeah, yeah. But yeah, day six has got actually quite a nice ending because um, it's funny how the mind works, right? As soon as I knew I was like within a mile of that castle, my body just started going, this is it, mate. Everything started seizing, and it was just like it was quite funny, and I just hobbled in over the line. But it's a nice way to end actually in the Cardiff Castle. It's good.
So, did you
Yeah.
have any extra pressure on finishing this year?
Oh yeah, I forgot. Oh yeah, I nearly forgot. Like probably the moment there, didn't I? Yeah. No. I suppose, yeah, I can't, yeah, I don't think Hannah would be my fiance now if I had to pull out or something. I think we'd have to wait for the holiday we're going on next week. Did plan this Dragons back, but I didn't make it. Yeah, that was a
So
little bit of a
James
pressure.
finished, ran over the line, and went straight onto one knee and proposed. And arguably, that's more pressure on Hannah than it is on you. I think. Like, what girl's going to say no?
I know. Mate, I'm just such an unselfish guy. I still made Dragons back about her. So that's the most important thing. So yeah, that was a bit of a natural pressure. Um,
Hang on.
Gary,
Go on, carry on.
have you? Is your camera dropped? There you go.
Bluetooth to
Come
my
on.
phone. Then yeah, it was my phone.
I
I
was
don't even know where my phone
looking at
is.
your blind and that. Yeah, so that was a bit of a pressure. But to be fair, like all those things, like the charity, all the external pressures you can get into your head, like your friends, not letting people down, the charity, like carrying the
Me.
ring, the proposal. They don't. They they actually, you just learn to block that out, and you just realize it's actually just you just got to do what you got to do to get to the end. I don't. There wasn't moments where I'm thinking, oh my god, I've got to carry this ring. I have to finish for this ring. I just like
Where did you
had to just get on
Where
with
did you
it.
carry the ring? That's all. But people have asked me, and I said I'll ask him when I speak to him on the podcast. But like,
Carried it
where
in
did you
my
carry
main.
the engagement ring?
The engagement ring, I carried it. I had it in my main drop bag with my first aid kit. Then on the last day, I put it in my halfway bag, drop point bag, sorry, small one, and then just
No
picked it
way.
up.
So you had to remember to
Yeah,
get it at the halfway. Oh, fucking
yeah.
hell.
That
That's too
that
much for
that
me.
stuff was easy though. To be fair, like I said, because like, and people said this to me, like, because I knew a few people that were working it and stuff like that. Oh, I can't believe how good you look, like wow, you look all right, you don't look. And I just put that down to like literally where this knee, just pulled the intensity from. Obviously there were elements of day 5 where I was just like, climbing up a hill and just what the fuck is going on here. But like, because that knee just stopped me pushing as hard as I probably would have liked to, which could have been at my detriment, like I've said already. Like that, my cognitive functions and stuff like that were fine. So when I was getting into camp, I was smiley, I was chatting to people, I was like, how you doing? And that's just because the knee just slowed me down so much that actually, my heart rate, if I look at my heart rates across the day, they were working at a much lower rate than most people. So like I say, blessing and a curse. So yeah.
What was it like? Like you say, that running, because I've done it twice now and still haven't run into that castle. So
Sorry, mate.
first year, obviously, just when it was 5 days, it just finished in a random field in an old school, didn't it? Outside of
Yeah.
Cardiff. And then last year, obviously, we couldn't use the castle because of the bloody Queen. So, like,
Yeah.
So what was it like running? How's it work? You would literally run straight into the middle of the castle, and that's the finish line, or do you finish before the castle? Because yeah, I'm interested.
It's in the castle actually. It's quite a magnificent finish, as in like it's like, do you know what, you're going through this lovely park. Bear in mind it's sunny. There's loads of people, clapping you on, blah blah. Then you go through that like big sort of door. Obviously that's open, and then you like enter like what seems like a mini festival. Like you're running towards the finish line, and then there's a stage, there's a photo bit, there's a bit you sort your kit out, there's like burger vans, stuff like that. And it's like I get in there, and I am so done. I'm just like, in my head, turn that music down, give me my trophy.
Yeah.
I want to go home. But then you have to wait, obviously, till
Sensory
the
overload.
presentation. Yeah, it was like that. There was so many people there. Obviously, people congratulating you, and I just was like a bit spaced out because I was just like, I when I got in, finished that line, obviously got on the knee, and then after that, it was like, I just need to grab my stuff, give myself a baby whitewash, get changed. I just need to get out of here. But then you had to wait around, and like you feel the hunger coming in, and you're like, oh my god, it's just like, come on, give me my trophy. I want to go out, because loads of people travelled up, so I wanted to go out and eat with them. Which by the time I got the trophy, they all had to leave anyway, so I didn't even get to do that. So I just went back to the hotel and had a bath. But so yeah, but it was like that, literally a sensory overload. It was like, it's quite bloody overwhelming, to be fair. But it's if I was say feeling a bit fresher, I probably would have took that in a lot better. It's a good ending. Hopefully, third time lucky, maybe, Gary. You'll get it.
Yeah, I think I'll just get a day ticket when I go and watch the rugby, mate.
just go there. Watch other people come in. That seems like a better idea, doesn't it? Let's be honest.
Been to Cardiff about 100 times and never been in that castle, so yeah, I'll go one day.
No, it's a good finish, a fantastic event. I would say, personally, like, if you're.
How much did you raise for charity, and which charity was it? I mean, I know, but everyone else.
Just over $6,000. Simon Says Bereavement charity. It's for like children, obviously, that have like lost their parents and stuff like that. So yeah, but just over $6,000 actually, which is good.
Good amount, mate, isn't it? Was that, like you say, was that kicking you on at certain points? So was it just like,
yeah, definitely. Like there was, because it's what's something I don't think people understand about that event. It's actually quite stressful if you have a partner at home, that event as well, because they've got like, they're dot watching you. They've got, people messaging them all the time. How's he getting on? Da-da-da. So actually, it's quite stressful for my missus. But like, what was quite nice is like, she obviously chatted to one of the girls at the charity quite a lot, and then there was like, she messaged her. I think it was after day 3, saying, "Oh, like, how much James has raised now supports like 29 children for 2 years." And I was just like quite taken back by that. I was like, God, that nearly, who's chopping onions in here? I was like, God, yeah. So that was like that was one of those moments where you just feel like, God, yeah, come on, you can just put yourself through this. But
it reminds you that people will get behind you as well. Like, people get behind you and support you and that kind of thing. It's a nice reminder sometimes. Like you say, like, I now more as a coach than a runner, because when I was doing the stuff that you're doing, say, like going into these things, not naive, but hadn't really experienced people following me and stuff before, there wasn't really tracking. So it was super. Like, Charlotte would, like, my wife would be either, before we had kids, she would be the one that would come to the events and be the support, but it'd be a case of like my mum and maybe her parents texting her. Whereas now, if I go off and do Dragon's Back or everything, she doesn't track me through the day or anything. She just she'll get the odd update and just like trust the fact that it'll be all right. Because like you say, otherwise it can get really stressful because she, especially when I was running like the local groups and the things like that, everyone becomes your friend, and I'd be going and doing events, and she'd be getting like tens of messages. How's Gary? And they don't know, do they? They don't know anything more than the next person. But then you, as the runner, you're worrying about them as a supporter. So you kind of have to figure out a way to take that stress. And tracking does that to a certain extent, but it also could give people more stress, because I imagine, like, because I spoke to her briefly, but on day 5, when you're like a kilometre out or whatever, and the tracker's stopped. But what I'd realised is that everyone had stopped. So there was like a black spot, and I was thinking, well, his is stopped. I was trying to figure out, when did it stop? When did it click in? I was like, I think he'll be all right as long as he doesn't basically go wrong from this point. But kind of things. But if you just if you were just tracking James, say, and you didn't have anyone else's on, yours is stopped and time's ticking, that's when people start panicking. Or if it's like
Yeah,
half an inch off the actual red line in like
yeah.
kilometer 29 on day 2 or something, and you've got people messaging you, "Are you okay?" It's like, yeah, fine, mate.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
you just stroll in. I'm like, my mate's waiting for me on day 5. One of my
yeah,
best mates, Alex, he popped up, and I'm just like having a chat with him and that, and he's like, oh god, and he's none the wiser because he can't get signal, so he doesn't know that. He
yeah,
knows I'm cutting it fine because it's near 10 o'clock. He's like, oh, you're just cutting it fine. But he's not going through like what other people are because they're there with the tracker, but he can't see that. They're there with the
yeah.
tracker thinking, oh my God. But I remember last year when I was following you and like Sam and that, I remember that spot is a dead spot. It's exactly the same for you guys last year. Because yeah, there was like
Mm,
bits when I was looking at you at that day, and I was it was like there was a point, sometimes I remember actually I looked at you at the Story Arms and it didn't update, and it was like I was like, oh my god, he's never getting there, and then it just went the
yeah.
bit just went,
It
and
just
I
pinged.
was like, oh thank god, yeah, it just cuts across
Yeah.
on it straight line, and I was like, oh thank god for that, because yeah, I ain't checked it
Either
for
that, or
another
you see it going down an A road and at like 70 miles an hour, and you're like,
yeah.
"Oh, that's not good."
That's what I was looking when I saw Simons did that, did it on day
Yeah,
5. I was like, oh no shit, he's
yeah.
not,
You're doing the
yeah,
walk of
carrying
shame
on,
back down.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So,
yeah,
would you do it again,
but
mate, or would you? Is it
um,
onto different things?
it's on to
Obviously, I don't
different
mean you have to do it
events.
next year, but
No, it's on to different events. I want to do a few 50 milers. I want to do some other events that around like the lakes, some stuff in North Wales again, and I just want to do the training as like what I'd advise clients, step by step over time, and then yeah, I probably would do that event again. To be fair, in a few years, just get more
mm,
mileage in the legs, get better, more confident. But I definitely would work it. I think that'd be quite an experience. I think I'd quite enjoy that.
mm,
And I probably would do it again because it's quite. I feel like it's a very unique event. The things that you do in that event, like compared to, I suppose, other ultras, but it is different to other ultras, isn't it? At the end of the day, so it is going to be like
yeah,
that. But I think it's definitely a great event for people to do. And if people, I don't think a lot of people know this, that I know obviously it's expensive, and I know that a lot of people, it's expensive for a race like. So if you work it, you basically get credits to use on that event. I don't think a lot of people know that. So like if you work Cape Wrath,
yeah,
you earn enough credits to do Cape Wrath. If you work Dragon's Back, you earn enough credits to do Dragon's Back and maybe other little events. So it's just good for people to know. But yeah, I would definitely probably do that
looks
event
harder than
again. It
running
was
it though, mate.
fantastic. Pardon?
It looks
Yeah,
harder than
oh
running
yeah,
it.
some of those jobs. Yeah, some of those jobs, they look more tired
Yeah,
than like the worst tired bloke who's on the actual event.
yeah.
Yeah.
Did you So before you go, give us like try like give us a paragraph maybe of, if for anyone that wants to survive the Dragon's Back, what would be like what stands out to you, like the things that you did well that got you through
Mm.
it.
Okay. Give yourself enough time for the event. Like how long have you been running already? I definitely think most people that don't finish this event, granted, like the heat changes the game for a lot of people because the heat can take out a lot of experienced runners as well, right? So give yourself enough time, because I feel like people. Why do people sometimes, should we say, fail? One, because it's really hard, probably what you're going to do, but I think lack of preparation at times. Do the recce's, do that sort of like in a camping style as well. That's what we did, so we would run from a campsite to another campsite just so you get good at that sort of admin, stuff like that. Be very accepting of the emotions you're going to feel in that event. Like there was probably not really one moment where okay, maybe on Triffin there was probably a moment where I thought, can I do this? And that was it, because I sort of conditioned my mindset over the time before that this is going to be really hard, accept it, and just keep moving. And I feel like if you can sort of do that before an event without it sounding wishy and washy, just accept that how hard this event's going to be, you know. And I think that makes it easier. So when you are in that time of it actually being hard and you're out of breath and you're dehydrated and you feel like shit and you're tired, you know, you just sort of have a word with yourself and go like, it's a privilege to be here. You've paid to be here. Just get on with it. And I found myself doing that a few times over certain days and times, you know, just having a word with yourself because, yeah, I don't know if there's any other points really. Enjoy it. It's a great event. But for me, it's giving yourself the time. That's the biggest point, is the time in the legs. You know, there's...
Remember that thing that I always say to people in the group, which is like, don't overestimate what you can do short term and don't underestimate what you can do long term. And that's pretty much what it is, isn't it? Like, people can jump into it a little bit too soon, maybe. And when it's going to be there in a year, in 2 years, in 4 years, just give yourself some time, just in case it's your one shot at doing it.
Yeah, like just get that volume in. I think something like that. Anyway, you know.
Yeah,
it's like it's just savage. For savage
nice
for
one, mate.
Me, a beginner. So yeah,
it's savage for everyone because you know, like you see Hugh at the front, who was obviously pushing it. If you speak to Si when in his best times, it's savage, isn't it? Because you're pushing yourself, no matter who you are. So whether you're pushing yourself to make a cut off or pushing yourself near the front.
Yeah, that's like the one thing, you know, I noticed about, like, when I speak to certain people, like, everyone's in the hole in that event, but everyone's at different stages. You know, the guys, the Robin, the Hugh, you look at them, they look like you, but they're just moving faster. Do you know what I mean? And they're just working at a higher intensity, you know?
I don't know, mate. You must have been watching different videos of yourself.
They look pale and like the same as you and hot, but like they're just going at like 8-minute miles over this mad terrain. So yeah.
Right, on that note, mate, I'm going to wrap it up because my arse has gone numb.
Gary's glitchy bum.
Yeah, thanks for that though. It was good. I didn't ask you too much about the event because I knew I was going to speak to you, so it was good to hear that it went well. And yeah, you had a great experience doing it, mate. Good. All right, mate. I will speak to you again soon. Thank you, mate.
Okay, mate. Thank you.